Well, what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about me. And first of all, I'm not a pastor, and I'm not a theologian. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to tell you the truth about my life, what's going on in society, and I believe what God believes. So I want to share that with you. I'm here definitely for you to answer questions and be a resource so that you can talk to people and know how to help people. This won't cover everything that you could ever want to know, but it'll cover a lot, and it'll help you to understand at least some small pieces of the mindset that you're dealing with out there. And then beyond that, we'll have classes. So let me tell you about who I am, since now you know who I'm not, or at least what I'm not. I'm John, obviously, founder and president of Free Indeed, and I'm absolutely honored to work with Brandon in this ministry. Free Indeed came out of, I guess, from my life. So to tell you a little bit about me, I am, I guess, a survivor of life. Aren't we all, though we're here? So at about 7 years old was my first experience with sex with a man, an adult. And at the time, it didn't trouble me, because as a little kid, you don't know what to be troubled by, right? You trust people. So that went on. So as I grew up, it continued, mostly with adults that sought to come after me as a kid. But again, I grew up with it. I wasn't raised in a Christian family. We were raised in another religion, but I won't tell you what, because I don't consider it Christian, and that's okay. So as I grew up, I thought it was just okay. I thought it was something that people did. Sex is when you have fun. That's when you're liked. That's when you're together with somebody. And then as the teen years came along, it got a little bit harder, but I was still okay with myself. I was saved at the age of 16 when my parents separated. We moved to New York from Springfield, Oregon, and that was a long time ago. And was born again, and I know that God was with me, and I know that I was saved. And I just want to throw in a little point here. Don't ever tell somebody they're not saved. I don't care what you think, because it's none of your business first, and it's none of your knowledge second. God knows. And you'll see why that's so important as I continue. So I was saved, we came back, started having a little bit more of a rough time now that I have this real picture of God. And the problem was that I couldn't now figure out why I liked guys and why that was such a natural seeming part of me. And then, of course, being told it had to go away. But they didn't tell me it had to go away nicely. People were right there to be sure and let me know I was the abomination in the room. So I hid, and I hid, and I hid, and I hid. And the only thing I can tell you about that rejection, especially through teenage years, is I'm thankful I was saved, because as I was building walls around me, the only light in the room was the Holy Spirit. But I didn't really recognize that either. You can imagine how hard it gets trying to balance God with who you are after what you've been brought up into. It's tough. So at around 18, I decided I couldn't take it. So instead of killing myself, I decided to move out of my parents' house because there were some real issues there. And I did. And I went on with the Lord, and I thought, well, God, you'll do something, right? If I pray enough, if I do the right thing, if I'm good enough, if I read my Bible, everything's going to be okay. And it wasn't. So I tried going into the Navy. I thought, well, this will make it all okay. I'll be safe there around the rules and regulations. I was a Navy brat, so I was okay with that. 4 out of 6 people in our family went to the Navy, just a side note. But that didn't work either. While I was in the Navy, I was actually arrested and charged with being a homosexual. And I'll tell you, when the police show up at 4 in the morning and put you in handcuffs because of your difference, it's tough. And I was smaller than I am now. I'm not much to look at, but imagine it smaller and more scared. And there was a bunch of us. They went on a witch hunt, and they achieved it. The neat thing, though, is I knew that God was with me. Even though I was still confused about why I was attracted, and I knew that I was guilty of this thing. Now it went from sin to crime, so we're just working toward death here. But the people that, as they were expelled from the Navy, or discharged as they call it, they went through all of them and they all got their general or dishonorable discharges. And then they got to me. And for some reason, figure this one out. The commanding officer that was in charge of the trial said, "John, you're a nice young man, and this should never be something that will destroy your life. So we're giving you an honorable discharge and sending you home." And I said, "Great. I don't like Guam anyway." I did like Hawaii, but I was tired of Guam. So, after being in Guam for a while and having all of my things stolen from me, being known as one of those guys, I was glad to get out of there. Came home to all the guilt and shame. Don't worry, it was there. It was ready to meet me at the airport, and it did. And I came home, and my friends promptly rejected me. So it was time to get married, because marriage was going to solve it. And the woman that I married was a friend of mine. You know, it's like, okay, we can do this. So we got married and had 2 beautiful children. And about 5 or so years, it just wasn't working again. So I did seek counseling. I tried to do stuff. And they said, "Well, we don't know what to do with you. We don't know where to help you. We don't know what to say." And I just said, "Well, that's great. Another failure in my favor." So I was now unhelpable. Is that a word? But we'll use it. So it got worse and darker. So now the attraction gets worse, and I'm trying to find a way out. So we separated. And during that time, I decided, well, I'll just go out and be what I want to be and do what I'm going to do, because it doesn't seem to matter. At which point, at one point, sorry, if I get teary, it's because sometimes I don't live in the pain of it, but I live in the memory of it. So a man met me in a bar and took me out. He said, "Come on, let's go." Great. So we got out into a field where there was no town around. And at a precise moment, he began to beat me and tried to kill me. I know he did. Fortunately, God was still with me, and all he did was break my jaw and scare me to death. And I got away. And it was pretty amazing how that happened. As he was kicking through the window of the car, we were out of the car, I ran back to the car. The window was down, and he was a big guy. And his foot was coming through that window into my face. That's not when he broke my jaw. He did that with his fist as he began to beat me into the ground. But his foot kept missing my face. I don't know how. Fortunately, I drove a clutch car, and back then, for those of you that don't know how to drive a clutch, or the modern ones, they jump if you don't have the clutch pushed in. So I got that key in, turned it, that baby just bounced away, and I went off to live. So then we divorced, and I moved away back to San Diego, where I could get into a large gay community and at least feel safe. I knew that the church had hated me. I knew that my friends had even invited me to their house, had me for dinner, and gave me a choice to deny what I was doing, or they would have nothing to do with me. So have dessert and get out. So I did. So I think the worst thing that I found out about later was the funeral that the Christians had at a Christian church, Pentecostal church. So they wished me dead, and I I was done. But I was living in San Diego, just so you know, I'm not dead. So I continued to grow up and have relationships and try to find happiness. And I found some. I did. I found some. I found a man who would care about me, who would love me and my children, and would allow me to live and be alive. And it was great. Until the day that I had to hold the morphine stick and help him die. The only thing that had never seemed okay was still death yet again. And I thought, what am I going to do now? I had my children, and shortly after that event, his name was Gary, by the way. He did accept the Lord before he passed away, though I was not the person who did that. I knew that if I was going to go out into a life that God hated, and to be the person that I knew that God hated, then I would not regard him either. So I went totally cold. And I'm thankful that God let me do that. I'll tell you why in a minute. So I went on. My kids ended up with me, and I raised two beautiful children, a boy and a girl, in the gay lifestyle. So they were part of it. They saw it all. And now they're advocates. And we'll talk about how they became advocates and how people you know are advocates. We don't have to be a big number of gay people to take over society, as you can see. But if I can get you to feel sorry for me, you'll fight for me. And that's what they do. So they have an appreciation, though, for people that are different. And I'm thankful for that heart. I'm thankful I didn't raise them to have a hatred for the people, but yet a love to say they're different, and I can accept that. So along the way, I had nothing to do with my direct family. And I did not want to come back to Oregon. I didn't see a point. Of course, I didn't see the point of having an Oregon anyway, but that's how angry I was. You could have Oregon and God. Yeah. It's good for me. But somewhere along the way, because I was saved back when I was 16, the Holy Spirit never, ever gave up on me. God never said, I hate you. People did. God never said, I've given up on you. People did. God never said any of the things that I'd been told, that I needed to die, that I should go away, that I was posthumously killed in a coffin. He never did that. So I started to believe that he loved me. And I remember seeing somebody on TV and going, wow, that sounds really good. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to cling to that. I'll just listen. Stayed in the lifestyle because I didn't know what else to do. But, you know, this was my life, right? So that's what I did. I was successful. I had money. I had things. I had everything that I could want, you know. It was fun. Except that I knew something was missing inside. And I knew what it was, but I didn't want to admit it. And that's why I said I'm glad that I was cold. Because when that hot water came of the Holy Spirit to clean me up, I felt it. And it moved me. Oh, when God turns on the fire, you jump. And that's all you can do. Because it's exciting.